Hello again. I'm Tripp Rogers. He is the Hall of Famer Mike Sheck, and we are the Fantasy Sultans. We're getting ready for week number 7 in the NFL. Certainly an interesting weekend in which we said goodbye to unbeaten teams, as the two unbeatens both went down the tubes on Sunday. And we also saw some fantasy breakouts and some fantasy meltdowns. But obviously, Mike, every week it seems we talk about it. Injuries, the big story, as we have a number of fantasy studs. Not so much right now, or they're on injury watch, I guess would be a good way to put it, because, some are out, some are not. Your thoughts?
Well, you got to keep an eye on Christian McCaffrey. He was the big injury of last week. Now, they're saying he could possibly play Monday night. He avoided a major injury. Turns out it was just a rib injury. But nonetheless, this is something to keep an eye on. And I'll talk about some players that you may want to watch for possible imports as we head down the line and head towards that Monday night game. Week number 6, you mentioned that the unbeatens, they do fall. And they fall to some subpar teams with backup quarterbacks, nonetheless. We saw, of course, Zach Wilson. He was the starting quarterback for the Jets last year with Aaron Rodgers now at the helm. And his injury, he goes back to being a backup quarterback, and Zach Wilson getting the job done. And then, of course, P.J. Walker and the Cleveland Browns, former Carolina Panther, by the way, taking down the 49ers.
Gotta get that wasn't there, because the Carolina Panthers are 0-6.
That's right. The Ofer,
baby, Ofer.
But nonetheless, I do want to talk about other players that we expected to maybe not have that great of performance, and they did really well. Breece Hall for the New York Jets, he just played well against that Philly defense, and that Philly defense is pretty good, by the way. There's a reason why the Eagles were 5-0 going into the season, and at that point, but Breece Hall running all over them, he did well. Joe Burrow bouncing back with 2 touchdown passes, thought he'd have an average performance, and then again on the other side of it, you got the Giants who, yeah, they lost, but they showed up in a big way against Buffalo. They almost beat Buffalo. And, Tyrod Taylor playing well. Darius Slayton recording a season high in yards for him, too. So that was a big shocker, being that Daniel Jones was out. So Tyrod Taylor's stepping in there.
But the Giants just absolutely blew the end of the first half and the end of the game. Now, here's my problem. And I'm a Giant fan. But the first half, at the end of the first half, that was on Tyrod Taylor. That was on him. The end of the game, you're 1 yard away. You've got Saquon Barkley back. He's been ripping off some yardage. You mean to tell me you didn't want to try him on 1 yard to go? I would have handed it off to him and let him try to go forward. The problem I had was also the fact they threw a pass. The Giants had been successful all night long, rolling the pocket out, play action pass, something. No, they just went and threw it. And I mean, I know people have been making a case that the Giants got jobbed on that last play because of the fact that the defender was holding. I get it. I understand that. But that to me sums up the game in a nutshell. The last play of the first half, the last play of the game. The Giants cannot get out of their own way. I mean, as funny as the Justin Pugh coming off the couch line was, it's a sad state of reality for the Giants. Now, they play the Commanders this week. They might get their first win. And, oh, by the way, Mike, the Carolina Panthers will not lose this week because they're on bye. Just want to throw that in there.
They will not win, but they will not lose.
They will not win. They will not lose. I want to go back also a little bit talking about the Eagles, and you mentioned them real quick. As much as I thought the Eagles are good, I didn't think they were. Remember last year when they started off on a tear? They were blowing people out. And I don't feel that this Eagle team is as good as it was last year. I really don't. I think a lot of people feel that the 49ers are a better team. And you talk about the McCaffrey injury. They had a couple of other injuries, but the McCaffrey injury was huge. The 49ers get a break because they play Monday night. So they have an extra day that he can heal, and the injury is not as bad as they originally thought it was. I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC. Now, granted, we'll have to see how things play themselves out, but I think it's telling. Brock Purdy lost for the first time in the regular season with that loss last week. So I just think, I also think it was a case of Cleveland was able to catch the 49ers in a game. I mean, let's talk about the fantasy implications. Yeah, the Niners kicker. Oh, I have him. Yeah, I lost. Yeah, 2 missed field goals. Not good. Not good. You make one of the two of those, and they're going home a winner. So it's interesting. Everything relates back to fantasy on that. Week 7 buys this week. I mentioned the Carolina Panthers, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Dallas Cowboys, the Houston Texans, the New York Jets, and the Tennessee Titans, all off this week. But we still have week number 7 in the NFL. And again, hopefully you're getting yourself ahead. You're trying to fill your spot. You're not scrambling to fill buys on your roster. But if you are, we're going to help you out. As always, the Fantasy Sultans have import exports, and the Hall of Famer will go first.
But I do want to mention really quick, Tripp. This is 2 of the most difficult weeks to navigate, 1 of 2 to navigate the season. As you mentioned, 6 teams will be on a bye. 6 more will be on a bye in week 13. So, you're going to have some time to prepare yourself for week 13. But with the injuries that are going around the NFL, I'm hard pressed to find any fantasy football roster that doesn't have an injury. You're just not going to find it. And if you do, it's few and far between. And fantasy at this point, if you're going to get to a championship or you're going to get to the playoffs or a championship, it's not going to be by skill. It's going to be by luck, because it's coming down to a lot of injuries so far.
Oh, no doubt about it. But I think we've said this, and we've stressed this, fantasy football. Yeah, you've got to have some skill, but you got to have some luck. In order to make to the championship. You've got to have some luck. And some of that luck could be Christian McCaffrey not seriously injured. I mean, he is a guy who is carrying your roster. He's, and you mentioned Breece Hall. Okay. I had no faith in him Sunday, so I benched him. Not a smart move. I still won my game, though, that I had it, but I'm just saying, I benched him. And that's not, you've got to sit there and think about that. Now, going into the game, I mean, I looked at my roster and I looked at the running backs I had, and I sat him. Now, of course, I don't have that choice this week because, he's off. But you better believe he is going to be in my lineup from here on in. And you have that every so often with players. You got to, again, the fantasy season is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So if your guy has one good week, he's going to, he may not have that week for the rest of the season. That's the way it's played. And I want to just flip that page also because, of course, Devon Achane is the fantasy darling of the year so far. Well, he is out till at least week 11. Now, if you have him on your roster, you got to make sure you hang on to him. You can put him on IR, but the best part is he's going to come back and he's just going to make that. You hope he's going to make that Miami Dolphins roster and that Miami Dolphins offense even better. All right, import exports, my friend.
All right, finally to import exports. I'll start with quarterback, and it could be a mess at quarterback if Justin Fields is rolled out. You've got Deshaun Watson, who's still hurt, Anthony Richardson on IR, Jimmy Garoppolo dealing with a back injury, Joe Burrow, of course, CJ Stroud, and Dak Prescott. They're all on buys, so you're going to have to go for a quarterback on the waiver wire. I'll give you a simple solution. We start with Sam Howell in Washington. And I managed to grab him last week in a league, and it paid off dividends for me. He passed for 151 yards, 2 touchdowns against Atlanta, scored at least 21 fantasy points in 4 of the past 5 games, including 3 in a row now. I like Hal as a top 10 fantasy quarterback this week. He should get the job done as an import. Next up, 2 running backs to pay close attention to. I mentioned the Christian McCaffrey injury. We talked about that. But 2 running backs that are going to be filling in for him if McCaffrey does not play. will be Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason. Now, we don't know what's going to happen on Monday night. Originally, they thought, well, maybe McCaffrey's going to be definitely out. Now they're saying there's a possibility he might play, and that may be the case. But when healthy, Elijah Mitchell has been the number 2 option in the backfield, but he also missed 2 games going in or prior to week number 6. So that's why I'm saying that you got to look at Jordan Mason as well. Based on what Kyle Shanahan said earlier this week, if McCaffrey doesn't play, those 2 will share touches. These are 2 players that you may want to grab. And I know it may sound crazy to grab 2 running backs for the same team, but you never know what's going to happen with that situation. I say you grab, you make an attempt at grabbing 2, because as the old expression goes, 2 for me, none for you. Well, that's going to be the case. So I would take a look at grabbing these 2 running backs. And if McCaffrey doesn't play, you could play either 1 or 2 of them. And of course, find out who the better option is moving forward if McCaffrey is going to be out for a long period of time. Also, wouldn't it be a bad idea to keep these guys on your roster? Because, hey, we always talk about handcuffs here, the Fantasy Sultans. That would be a great idea to keep him just in case McCaffrey suffers another injury in the future. We know McCaffrey's injury prone. He's been healthy last season. Going into the season, great performer, but you know what? Injuries happen, and the injury bug has bitten McCaffrey, so we'll see what happens there. All right, I'm going to move to the receivers category, and we'll go with an import with future potential. That's Rashid Rice for Kansas City. He had 4 catches for 72 yards on 4 targets against Denver, and at least 10 points in 4 of 6 games. Now, it's only a matter of time until the Chiefs feature him more in that offense. We know who the guys are for Kansas City behind Travis Kelce, but no doubt about it, Rashid Rice is going to be a playmaker. Now, Kansas City also did make a move for Mecole Hardman. He goes back from the Jets back to Kansas City. He was with Kansas City. He went to the Jets, now back in Kansas City. So I'll be interested to see what happens there, but I still believe that there is some good upside with Rashid Rice. All right, how about 2 exports? Russell Wilson in Denver. Now, we thought it was rough with Nathaniel Hackett last season, and Russell Wilson thought maybe it was going to get better for him. Sean Payton was going to be the quarterback whisperer for Russell Wilson. No, I don't think so. Not at this point, because it has not looked good. I don't know if he's washed up or it's just taking him a while to get used to Sean Payton in the offense. But he is not clicking in Denver whatsoever. The Broncos play the Packers this week. Green Bay's coming off a bye, so they're going to be ready for Russell Wilson. And then Russell Wilson plays Kansas City yet again in week number 8 before he goes on a bye week in week 9. So the next 3 weeks are pretty rough for Russell Wilson. I would not want him on my lineup. I would, in fact, either bench him or drop him and then see what happens further into the season. If he progresses, then maybe you pick him back up at some point. But he is not a player that I trust right now. Another export, Jahan Dotson of Washington. Now, Dotson new low against Atlanta last week. No catches, just 1 target. He scored 6 points or less in 4 of the past 5 games for the Commanders. Very little reason to keep him on the roster at this point. I know they face the Giants this week, but still, I don't think it's going to make a difference. McLaurin, Brian Robinson, they have been the targets for Sam Howell. It has not been Jahan Dotson, who started off well at the beginning of the season, but and he was a player that you and I both had high hopes for this season. Would do well. Not the case.
Yeah, it's that Washington offense, tough to figure out. But you mentioned, again, both sides of it. You had Sam Howell as an import, and you had Jahan Dotson as an export. And I understand that. I get that point. Well, I'm going to get off the negative this week. I have no exports, but I do have a couple of imports, and you're going to want to pay attention to some of this. First of all, a position that really you struggle with every fantasy year. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's Travis Kelce, and then there's everybody else. George Kittle, he's good too. Mark Andrews for Baltimore. But if you're looking for a tight end, here's somebody you may want to pick up. And this would be somebody you could add for depth depth too. Josh McDaniels finally discovered his second-round draft pick by the name of Michael Myers. No, not Halloween Michael Myers. Michael Myers, tight end. And it's funny because nothing happened for him the first 4 weeks. He has now become a viable third option in that offense for the Las Vegas Raiders. And he had a great week last week against the Patriots. I mean, this was his best week. He had a team high 5 catches, 75 yards, and he was also he's a number 1 tight end prospect right now. He is somebody who could give you some time. I don't know, maybe every week he's a starter. He has to prove himself, but based on the last 2 weeks, he's somebody who I think you could pick up. And again, tight end is not a position that is overly deep. And you talk about injuries. Josh Johnson, the Saints tight end, just ruled out this week, and he has been struggling with injury. We talk about the bye week. The Dallas Cowboys are off this week. Jake Ferguson is sitting. I have him on a couple of leagues. So you're looking for replacements. Mike Myers could be your guy. Not Mike Myers, Mike Meyer. I apologize. Speaking of New England, their offense has shown some signs of life, I guess. Kendrick Bourne has shown some signs of life. Now, granted, New England's a mess. And we've talked about the fact that New England really has struggled. Mac Jones, I mean, this has been awful. But in week 6, Kendrick Bourne did pretty good. And he's somebody who is available probably in your league. And if you're looking for some running back depth, he's got to pick up. I really, really think he would. I checked that wide receiver. I apologize. He's the number 1 wide receiver in New England. I realize that's not saying much, but again, you're looking for some depth. Kendrick Bourne could be your guy. Here's a name we haven't said in a while. Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary, this is, I say this to you because I have seen this from a couple of fantasy experts. Of course, we're the best experts, but I've seen other people mention him. He's more of a long-term play, and one of the reasons is things are going well in Houston. They really are, and they're going better than expected with C.J. Stroud as a quarterback. But Dameon Pierce, as the running back, the lead running back, has struggled on this new offense. And Singletary was signed after their new offensive coordinator was hired, and he fits into the system really well. And here's a guy who's available in about 90% of the leagues. So again, you're looking for some depth at running back. Devin Singletary is a guy you're going to want to pick up. Now, he's not the flashy, he's not the sexy guy, but again, depth pick for running back, bye week starter. This guy could do it, especially with a Houston team that is on the upswing. It's not on the downswing. And here's another one. Sunday night watching the game, we heard a name from the past. That name was Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray. Yes. Yeah. I mean, one of the things about that game Sunday night, of course, Damian Harris injured. He's going to be okay, but he's in concussion protocol right now. And I think at this point he's not going to play. But you saw Murray get some quality snaps on Sunday. And I think going forward, this guy who knows the Buffalo system, I think he's going to have some opportunities. So he would be another guy you want to grab, and you want to have a little bit of depth. Now, we talk about quarterbacks and we talk about navigating. You've got a lot of big quarterbacks who are out this week. I'm not going to put Zach Wilson in that category. Joe Burrow, I'll put in that category. Dak Prescott, I'll put in that category. C.J. Stroud, you're looking for a quarterback. Well, I don't know if he is going to play this week, but the numbers have to be good for you if you want to look ahead. Kyler Murray is supposed to be very close to returning for the Arizona Cardinals. It's a Cardinals team that has done okay with Josh Dobbs, but Kyler Murray is the guy in Arizona, and they're going to get him back in the lineup when he is ready. And he is that dual threat of being able to run and pass, although we don't know coming off the serious knee injury. But again, if you're looking for quarterback depth, and if you have a bye week with a starter, let's say week 9, week 10, Kyler Murray could be a good stash on your bench. He'd be somebody to pick up. And remember, he was one of the dynamic fantasy performers over the course of the last couple years. One last one I'm going to throw in there. My daughter and her mom are heading to Seattle to see a Seahawks game. Stephanie's mom is a huge Seahawks fan. And if you're looking for a streaming defense this week, grab the Seahawks. Now, I know their sack number total was inflated because I got 11 against the Giants, but this is a defense that is on the rise. And again, you're not necessarily going to marry with one defense the rest of the year. And believe it or not, I have picked up Seattle this week. I've dropped Kansas City and Miami in 2 of the leagues. Now, again, part of it is I'm going with the streaming defense type of thought pattern. And the other thing is, I think I could probably pick up both the defenses somewhere down the road because I'm not sure everybody is going to pick them up. So if you're looking for a streaming defense, I would say take the Seattle Seahawks this week. They're playing against Arizona. In fact, they are one of the big favorites on the board this week. 6.5 point choice last time I looked at it. And those are my import exports, and those are our import exports on the Fantasy Sultans. Week 7, Mike, I mean, it's amazing. This season, it seems like, is flying by. We're already into the middle of October. And again, I think we talk about this time and time again. Plan ahead, because I made the mistake in one league this week. I didn't have a kicker lined up. Unfortunately, the kicker I had to let go was Eddie Pinheiro. Not a great loss. Not a great loss. But again, try and plan ahead. Try and think ahead, plan ahead, because it'll save you a little bit of agita. Because the other part of it is that one of the big pickups this week, one of the big running back pickups was Kareem Hunt in Cleveland, because Kareem Hunt had a great game on Sunday. And if you wait till the week of and you put yourself in a hole, everybody's going to be going after the hot guy. And Kareem Hunt was a hot pickup this week. I think if you look at any fantasy league, he was probably one of the most picked up players this week. And that's what you're going to do. Whereas if you work a week ahead, you get yourself ahead. You're not scrambling for a replacement. Or you get the email on Wednesday morning, your waiver claim not accepted. Somebody who was higher than you took them. Disappointment, sadness over your morning coffee. You don't want that. You really want to try and work ahead, and especially in terms of like tight end, defense, kicker, because again, there's a lot of possibilities, but it's always good to work ahead. I know if you have a quarterback who goes down and you have to get a quarterback, it's not going to match up. I mean, let's face it, the Jets found out, there's no replacing Aaron Rodgers. But I mean, Zach Wilson has done, and the Jets have done not bad. Zach Wilson has not played terribly, but, he hasn't set the world on fire. And Mac Jones is another guy who you still got half the season left to try and make something of it. But again, a week-to-week proposition, you may want to just help yourself by planning ahead.
And you know what may not be also a bad idea? Making multiple waiver wire claims just in case your first one doesn't work out. You need to have a plan A, a plan B, and even maybe a plan C in that case. But I'm just wondering, the Fantasy Sultans here, we've been on the Arizona bandwagon a lot lately. And we said at the beginning of the season that we were not loving Arizona. But you know what? I don't know about you, but Arizona, take off your rainbow shades. I'm telling you.
There we go. Pulling out the Mark Lindsay, baby.
There you go. Take another look at the world, my.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I again,
maybe Arizona, we should move to Arizona.
Arizona's surprised. Again, in terms of fantasy, you never know what to expect. This was a team. I mean, let's be realistic. Going into the season, and I think we all said the same thing. Josh Dobbs literally was traded 10 days before the start of the season. Josh Dobbs became the starter within 10 days. Now, there was a reason why they traded with Cleveland for him, but is he Kyler Murray? No, because Kyler Murray's got a bigger contract too. But Josh Dobbs has done a good job, and Arizona has put together some players. Now, they've got injuries. James Conner is now going to be out for a couple of weeks, and that's going to hurt that offense. There is no big receiving stud because they got rid of D-Hop in the off season. So we didn't expect a lot from Arizona, but we have gotten a lot. And if you backed Arizona players, you've been paid off. I mean, listen, who would have expected the Miami Dolphins to be as good as they've been? And not just, Tua's been great. Tyreek Hill is in a class by himself, but the offense is really balanced in Miami. And you got Mostert, you got a Chin. They've got a lot of people who are doing well. They've got a lot of weapons. And again, if they can avoid the injury bug, Miami is going to be a good offense. And again, for fantasy football players, your faith in Miami is going to be rewarded. I think Miami's got to be the surprise team in fantasy so far this year. Would you agree?
Oh, I would say most certainly they are the surprise. Yeah, without a doubt.
Well,
and you know what? With Tua being healthy, but if he would we be talking about the same thing if Tua wasn't having health issues?
I agree.
The totally different ball game. Yeah,
you're right. You're absolutely right. All right, Fantasy Sultans are here to help you. We would love to hear your comments and questions about our podcast. Just email fantasysultans@gmail.com. And of course, remember to look for us. We are on YouTube. We are also on Spotify for podcasters. Give a listen and a look at my podcast, Tripp's Take, which we have every week. It drops on Thursday mornings. You can find it on Spotify for podcasters and on YouTube. Also, just search for Tripp's Take. Like the music of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, including Arizona by Mark Lindsay. You can listen to WTRSradio.com online. We give you the information you need. We're going to help you win your fantasy football league. We're giving. We're not taking, we're giving. We're givers. Give you imports, exports. We have some fun. We talk football. It's a lot of fun. He's the Hall of Famer, Mike Scheck. I'm Tripp Rogers, better known as the Fantasy Sultans.
And you are not.